My parents demanded I give my house to my sister, or they'd sue me. My lawyer just laughed, and for the first time I felt free. But what happened to them afterward shocked the entire family and left them with nothing. I'm sitting in my living room right now, looking out at the lake view that my parents swore should belong to my sister instead. The same lake view they claimed was wasted on someone like me. The same house they threatened to sue me over. The same property that became the catalyst for everything that followed. My name is Kimberly, and I'm 31 years old. For most of my life, I've been the invisible daughter, the one who did everything right, but somehow always fell short in my parents' eyes. My sister Amanda, 3 years younger, has been the golden child since birth. She got the bigger bedroom, the newer car, the college fund that somehow tripled in size compared to mine. But I told myself it didn't matter. I worked 3 jobs through college, graduated with honors, and built a successful career in software development. The house is where this story really begins. 2 years ago, my grandmother passed away. Grandma Rose had always been different from my parents. She saw me, really saw me. We'd spend hours talking about books, about dreams, about life beyond the small town where I grew up. When she got sick, I was the one who took care of her. I drive for hours every weekend to her place, help with medications, cook meals, sit with her during chemo treatments. My parents visited once a month, if that. Amanda came twice in the entire year. Grandma was sick, both times asking for money. Grandma Rose left me her house in her will, not the family home where she'd raised my dad, but her lake house, the beautiful 3-bedroom cabin she bought with her own money after her grandpa died, her sanctuary. It was worth about $800,000, located in one of the most desirable areas in northern Michigan. She left it to me with a handwritten note that said, "For Kimberly, who understood what it meant to truly be present. May you find peace here." I cried for hours when I read that note. My parents were furious, not sad about losing Grandma, not upset about the contents of the will on any emotional level, just angry about the money. They showed up at my apartment in Chicago 3 days after the funeral, my mother's face pinched tight, my father looking like he wanted to break something. "This is unacceptable." My mother, Patricia, announced the moment I opened the door. She didn't even say hello. "Your grandmother clearly wasn't in her right mind when she made that will." "She was perfectly lucid," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "She knew exactly what she was doing. That house should be split between you and Amanda." My father, Robert, insisted, "It's not fair that you get everything." "I don't have everything. She left you her jewelry, her savings account, and the family home. This was her personal property, and she chose to leave it to me." Amanda was there too, lurking behind them, with crocodile tears in her eyes. "I can't believe you're being so selfish about this, Kimberly. Grandma loved both of us." "Then she would have left it to both of us," I replied, feeling something hard and cold settling in my chest. But she didn't. That was 2 years ago. They contested the will, of course, spent 6 months and probably $30,000 in lawyer fees trying to prove Grandma Rose was incompetent. They lost. The judge reviewed her medical records, spoke with her doctors, and concluded that she'd been of completely sound mind. The house was legally and irrevocably mine. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. I moved into the lake house 8 months ago. I'd been working remotely since the pandemic anyway, and I was tired of Chicago. Tired of the noise, the crowds, the constant reminder of how alone I felt, even surrounded by millions of people. The lake house felt like coming home. I spent months renovating it, not because it needed work, but because I wanted to make it mine while honoring Grandma's memory. I kept her garden, tended her roses, repainted in soft colors that reminded me of summer mornings. I turned one bedroom into an office, another into a guest room, and kept the master bedroom mostly as Grandma had left it, with a 4-poster bed facing the lake. I was happy, genuinely, peacefully happy, for the first time in my adult life. Then 3 weeks ago, my parents showed up unaided. I was on a video call when I heard the knocking, aggressive, demanding knocking. I excused myself from the meeting and opened the door to find both my parents standing there with Amanda beside them. Behind them was a man in a cheap suit carrying a briefcase. "We need to talk," my mother said, pushing past me into the house. "You can't just barge in here," I protested, but they were already in my living room, Amanda looking around with an expression that made my skin crawl. Nice place, Amanda said, running her finger along my bookshelf. Must be lonely out here all by yourself. What do you want? I asked, not bothering to hide my irritation. My father gestured to the man in the suit. This is Harold Chen, our attorney. We're here to make you a very generous offer. I laughed. Actually laughed. An offer. For what? For the house, my mother said, as if it were obvious. Amanda is getting married in 6 months. She and Tyler need a place to start their life together. This house is perfect for them. The audacity took my breath away. This house is mine. It's not for sale. We're prepared to offer you $200,000, my father said. That's more than fair. The house is worth $800,000. And again, it's not for sale. Amanda's eyes welled up with tears. This was her signature move. Had been since childhood. Kimberly, please. Tyler and I can't afford anything nice. We're just starting out. You already have a good job. You don't need this big house. It's selfish to keep it all to yourself when family needs it. Family? I repeated the word, tasting bitter. Where was family when I was working 3 jobs through college? Where was family when I was taking care of Grandma every single weekend? Where was family when you all contested the will and tried to take this away from me? That's ancient history, my mother snapped. We're here now trying to do right by everyone. Amanda deserves to have a nice home for her wedding. You're being spiteful. I'm being spiteful? I could feel my voice rising. You show up at my house uninvited with a lawyer, offering me 1/4 of what this property is worth, and I'm the spiteful one. Harold Chen cleared his throat. Ms. Morrison, perhaps we should discuss this more rationally. Your parents have consulted with me about their legal options regarding this property. Legal options? I repeated slowly. There are precedents for familial property disputes, he said, pulling papers from his briefcase. Cases where courts have ruled that inheritances should be more equitably distributed among siblings, especially when the deceased may have been unduly influenced. We already went through this, I said, my heart pounding. The court ruled that Grandma was completely competent. That was regarding her mental capacity, he countered. This would be a different argument entirely. We would be arguing that you exerted undue influence over your grandmother in her final months, isolating her from the rest of the family, manipulating her into changing her will. I stared at him, then at my parents, then at Amanda, who was still doing her wounded puppy impression. You're threatening to sue me. We don't want it to come to that, my father said. Just be reasonable. Give Amanda the house. We'll drop everything and we can all move forward as a family. Get out, I said quietly. Kimberly, my mother started. Get out of my house now before I call the police. Harold Chen handed me a business card. If you change your mind, we're prepared to file the lawsuit within the week. I'd strongly encourage you to consider settling this matter privately. They left, Amanda shooting me a look that was pure venom beneath her tears. I stood in my doorway, watching them drive away, shaking so hard I had to lean against the frame to stay upright. I called my own lawyer the next morning. Jennifer Walsh had handled the initial will contest, and she knew my family's patterns well. I explained what had happened, read her the threats from their attorney. She laughed, actually laughed, this bright, delighted sound that I didn't understand. Kimberly, she said when she composed herself, they don't have a case, not even close. In fact, if they try to sue you with this argument, I can almost guarantee they'll face sanctions. Their lawyer should know better than to bring a frivolous suit like this. But he seems serious, I said, still feeling shaky. Of course he did. He's getting paid to seem serious. But undue influence after a court has already examined your grandmother's competency and found her sound of mind, with a 2-year gap between when she wrote the will and when she died, with medical records showing she was lucid until the very end, they'd be laughed out of court. For the first time since my parents' visit, I felt something other than fear. I felt anger. Clean, righteous anger. What should I do? I asked. Let them sue, Jennifer said. In fact, I hope they do, because then we can counter-sue for harassment, legal fees, and potentially defamation if they spread lies about you manipulating your grandmother. Plus, we have something else working in our favor. What's that? Your grandmother's estate is still technically open. There were some tax issues that needed to be resolved, I'm still the executive's attorney, which means I have access to all of her financial records, including some very interesting documents I found while settling things. She wouldn't tell me more on the phone, said she needed to review everything first. We scheduled a meeting for the next day. I barely slept that night, but for the first time in years, it wasn't anxiety keeping me awake. It was possibility. The next afternoon, I drove to Jennifer's office in Traverse City. She had papers spread across her conference table, post-it notes marking various pages. Her assistant brought coffee, and Jennifer waited until we were alone before speaking. Your grandmother was a meticulous record keeper, she began. I knew that from working on the estate, but while going through her files, I found something that changes everything. She slid a folder across to me. Inside were bank statements, canceled checks, and handwritten notes in Grandma's careful script. Your grandmother had been lending money to your parents for years, Jennifer explained. Large amounts. We're talking about $150,000 total over the last decade of her life. I stared at the numbers, not quite processing. What? These were documented as loans, not gifts. She had promissory notes, repayment schedules, everything properly executed. Your parents were supposed to pay her back with interest. Did they? Jennifer's smile was sharp. They made exactly 3 payments, all in the first year, nothing after that. Your grandmother tried to collect gently at first, then more firmly. There are letters, emails, text messages. Your parents always had excuses. Amanda needed a new car. They were renovating the kitchen. Your father's business was having a slow quarter, so they owed her money when she died, $147,000 with accumulated interest. The debt doesn't disappear with death. It becomes a claim against the estate, which means you, as the primary beneficiary, have inherited that debt. I was starting to understand. I can demand repayment. Absolutely. And there's more. She pulled out another document. Your parents also borrowed $50,000 from your grandmother specifically for Amanda's college fund. There was a written agreement that this money was to be used solely for educational expenses. Let me guess. I said. It wasn't. Amanda attended community college for 1 semester before dropping out. Total cost of that semester, $3,200. I pulled Amanda's financial records as part of our investigation. That $50,000 went to a down payment on her current condo, a car, a vacation to Europe, and various shopping sprees. All documented on social media, I might add. So, they defrauded Grandma. Technically, they breached a contract and misappropriated funds. Either way, you have legal grounds to demand immediate repayment. All of it. I thought about my parents' house, their cars, their lifestyle. Can they afford to pay? Jennifer's expression told me everything. Your father's business is struggling. I did some research. He's mortgaged to the hilt, maxed out on credit cards. Your mother hasn't worked in 20 years. They're living paycheck to paycheck, maintaining appearances they can't afford. And Amanda, her fiancé, Tyler, works at a car dealership, making maybe $45,000 a year. She's a part-time yoga instructor. They can barely afford their condo, let alone a lake house. The pieces were falling into place. They need money. That's what this is really about. They thought they could bully me into giving them an $800,000 asset for a fraction of its value. Exactly. They're desperate, which makes them dangerous, but also vulnerable. I stared at the documents. Years of my parents' entitlement and manipulation laid out in black and white. What do you recommend? We have options, Jennifer said, leaning back in her chair. We can demand immediate repayment of the debt. Given their financial situation, they'd likely have to declare bankruptcy or negotiate a settlement. We could also report the fraud regarding Amanda's education fund. Or, she paused, we could wait for them to sue you, then bring all of this up in court along with a countersuit. What would happen if they sued and we did that? Best case scenario for us, they'd be ordered to pay your legal fees, face sanctions for filing a frivolous lawsuit, and still owe you the original debt. The judge would not be amused by their behavior. We might also be able to pursue fraud charges. Worst case for them, they lose everything. Their house, their cars, their credit, your sister's condo. Any assets they have would be liquidated to pay the debt and legal fees. I should have felt guilty. A good daughter would have felt guilty. But sitting there, looking at the evidence of years of favoritism, manipulation, and outright theft from a woman I'd loved dearly, I felt nothing but cold satisfaction. Let's wait, I decided. If they sue, we respond with everything. If they don't, we give them 30 days' notice on the debt repayment. Jennifer nodded approvingly. I'll start preparing the paperwork. I didn't have to wait long. 5 days later, I was served with papers. My parents, along with Amanda, were suing me for undue influence, elder manipulation, and fraudulent acquisition of property. They were demanding the house be sold and the proceeds split evenly among all grandchildren, which was just Amanda and me. I called Jennifer immediately. They actually did it. Excellent, she said, sounding genuinely pleased. I'll file our response and countersuit tomorrow. This is going to get interesting. The lawsuit became the talk of our extended family. My Aunt Carol, Dad's sister, called me within hours of the filing. Kimberly, what is going on? She demanded. Your parents are saying you stole Grandma's house. I didn't steal anything. Grandma left it to me in her will, a will that was already validated by the court. They're saying you manipulated her, kept her away from the family. I was the only one taking care of her while she was dying, I said, my voice tight. Where were they? Where were you? Silence. Then, quietly, I didn't know it was that bad. None of you did, because none of you were there. Aunt Carol sighed. Your father called me yesterday, asked if I could lend him money for the lawsuit. I said no. He got very angry. He's been borrowing money from everyone for years. I said, did you know he owed Grandma almost $150,000? Another silence. Longer this time. What? I told her everything. The loans, the breach of contract, the misappropriated education fund. Carol listened without interrupting. I had no idea, she said finally. Robert always acted like he was doing so well. The business, the house, everything. It's all smoke and mirrors. He's broke, Carol. They all are. That's what this lawsuit is really about. They need money, and they thought they could bully me into giving them the house. What are you going to do? I'm going to fight, and I'm going to win. Carol was quiet for a moment. I believe you will. And Kimberly, I'm sorry for not being there when Mom was sick, for not seeing what was really happening, for all of it. It was the first apology any family member had offered me. I didn't quite know what to do with it. Thank you. If you need anything, let me know, and I mean that. Over the next few weeks, the family began to fracture. Aunt Carol talked to her brothers, my dad's 2 younger siblings. Uncle Tom was horrified by the lawsuit and immediately sided with me. Uncle David tried to stay neutral, but eventually admitted he'd lent my dad $20,000 2 years ago that was never repaid. My mother's family was smaller, just her sister, my Aunt Linda. Linda had never liked my dad, thought my mom had married beneath her. When she heard about the lawsuit, she called me directly. Your mother is making a terrible mistake, she told me. I've tried to talk to her, but she won't listen. She's convinced that you're stealing from Amanda. Amanda didn't even visit Grandma when she was dying. I know. I was there. Remember that time you had the flu and couldn't make it? I came to sit with Rose. She talked about you the whole time, how proud she was, how much she wished your parents could see you the way she did. I had to blink back tears. I didn't know that. Rose knew what she was doing with that will, Linda said firmly. She knew exactly who deserved her house. Don't you dare back down. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for 6 weeks after the filing. Jennifer prepared thoroughly, assembling not just our defense, but our countersuit. She subpoenaed financial records, gathered evidence of the loans, compiled the documentation of Amanda's misuse of the education fund. 3 days before the hearing, my mother called. Not my father, not Amanda, my mother. Kimberly, we need to talk, she said without preamble. Talk to my lawyer, I replied. Please just listen. We're willing to drop the lawsuit if you agree to sell the house and give Amanda half the proceeds. So, you're willing to drop your baseless lawsuit if I give you $400,000? How generous. Don't be sarcastic. This is serious. You're tearing this family apart. I laughed, bitter and sharp. I'm tearing the family apart. You sued me, Mom. You're claiming I manipulated Grandma on her deathbed. You're trying to steal the one thing she wanted me to have. We're trying to make things fair, she insisted. Amanda deserves exactly what Grandma left her, which was nothing. Because Amanda never cared about her. None of you did. That's not true. When was the last time you visited her, Mom? Before she got sick. I mean, when was the last time you called just to talk, not to ask for money? Silence. That's what I thought. I said, "See you in court." I hung up before she could respond. The hearing was everything I hoped it would be, and more. My parents showed up with Harold Chen, looking confident, Amanda wearing a demure dress and clutching Tyler's hand. They clearly prepared her to play the victim. Jennifer arrived with 3 banker's boxes of evidence. The judge, the Honorable Margaret Fisher, was a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and zero patience for nonsense. She reviewed the initial filings, then looked at my parents' lawyer, Mr. Chen. I presided over the original will contest 2 years ago. I personally reviewed Rose Morrison's medical records and found her to be of completely sound mind. What new evidence are you presenting that would contradict that ruling? Harold Chen stood, smoothing his tie. Your Honor, we're not disputing Mrs. Morrison's mental capacity. We're arguing that the defendant exerted undue influence over her grandmother, isolating her from family and manipulating her into changing her will. The will was written 3 years before Mrs. Morrison's death, Judge Fisher noted, looking at her papers. Are you suggesting this undue influence began that far back? We believe the defendant had been working on her grandmother for years, Your Honor, slowly alienating her from the rest of the family, positioning herself as the primary caregiver to maximize her inheritance. Judge Fisher turned to me. Ms. Morrison, did you provide care for your grandmother during her illness? I stood. Yes, Your Honor. I drove to her home every weekend for the last year of her life. I helped with medications, meals, and medical appointments. And where was the rest of the family during this time? They visited occasionally. My parents came perhaps once a month, my sister twice in total. The judge looked at my parents. Is this accurate? My father stood reluctantly. We had obligations, Your Honor. Work responsibilities. Kimberly was single, working from home. She had more flexibility. I see. And did you contribute financially to your mother's care? My father hesitated. We helped where we could. Jennifer stood. Your Honor, if I may, we have evidence that directly contradicts that claim and furthermore demonstrates why this lawsuit is not just baseless, but potentially fraudulent. Judge Fisher raised an eyebrow. I'm listening. Jennifer presented the evidence systematically. The loans from Grandma Rose, the mispayments, the education fund that had been misappropriated, the mounting debt my parents had accumulated while presenting an image of prosperity. Harold Chen's face went from confident to concerned to downright pale as the evidence mounted. Your Honor, Jennifer continued, the plaintiffs owed Rose Morrison $147,000 at the time of her death. They borrowed an additional $50,000 specifically for Amanda Morrison's education, which was used instead for personal purchases. They made 3 loan payments in 10 years. This lawsuit is not about justice or fairness. It's about financial desperation. Judge Fisher looked at my parents with an expression that could freeze lava. Is this true? My mother had tears running down her face, but they weren't the manipulative tears Amanda deployed. These were tears of humiliation and fear. We were going to pay her back, my father said weakly. The business had some setbacks, but we were working on it. For 10 years? The judge asked incredulously. You were working on repaying a loan for 10 years while simultaneously trying to claim your daughter manipulated your mother. It's not like that, Amanda interjected, standing up. Grandma knew we needed the money. She wanted to help family. Then she would have made it a gift, not a loan, Judge Fisher said sharply. Sit down, Miss Morrison. Amanda sat, looking shocked. Probably the first time in her life someone hadn't immediately capitulated to her tears. Mr. Chen, the judge continued, did you know about these debts when you filed this lawsuit? Harold Chen cleared his throat. The clients mentioned some financial history with the deceased, but they characterized it as normal family assistance, Your Honor. In other words, they lied to you. That's not how I would phrase it, Your Honor. Judge Fisher was not amused. Here's how I'm going to phrase it. This lawsuit is dismissed with prejudice. The plaintiffs are ordered to pay the defendant's legal fees. Furthermore, I'm referring this matter to the State Bar for review of Mr. Chen's due diligence in accepting this case. She turned to my parents. As for the debt owed to Rose Morrison's estate, that's a matter for civil court. but I strongly suggest you work out a payment plan with Miss Morrison's attorney. This hearing is adjourned." The gavel came down like a guillotine. My parents sat frozen. Amanda was crying. Real tears now. Tyler looked like he wanted to disappear. Harold Chen was frantically gathering his papers, already distancing himself from his clients. Jennifer leaned over to me. "That went better than expected." "What happens now?" I whispered. "Now we negotiate. They have to pay your legal fees, which are going to be substantial. Plus, they still owe the estate $197,000. They don't have that kind of money, so we'll end up settling for whatever we can get." "I don't want their money," I said, surprising myself. "I want them to leave me alone." Jennifer studied me. "We can make that happen." In the days following the hearing, I experienced something I hadn't felt in years. Vindication. But it came with unexpected complications. News of the lawsuit and its dismissal spread through our small community faster than I'd anticipated. The local newspaper ran a story about it, carefully worded to avoid libel, but clear enough that anyone who knew our family understood exactly what had happened. My phone started ringing. Old family friends, people I hadn't spoken to in years, neighbors from my childhood. Some called to offer support. Others called fishing for gossip. A few called to lecture me about the importance of family forgiveness. One call stood out. It was from Mrs. Patterson, an elderly woman who'd been Grandma Rose's best friend. She was 91 years old, sharp as a tack, and she didn't mince words. "Your grandmother would be proud of you," she said without preamble. She worried about what would happen after she was gone, worried that Patricia and Robert would try something exactly like this. "She knew?" I asked, stunned. Of course she knew. Rose wasn't blind to her son's faults. She loved him, but she saw him clearly. She saw all of them clearly. That's why she made sure the will was ironclad. Why she documented everything. She was protecting you, Kimberly. Even after death. I had to sit down. I wish she'd told me. She didn't want to burden you. You had enough to deal with taking care of her. But she made me promise to call you if anything happened. Took me a while to work up the nerve, but when I saw that article in the paper, I knew it was time. Mrs. Patterson told me stories about Grandma that I'd never heard, how my parents had been borrowing money from her for years, always with promises to repay that never materialized, how Amanda had called Grandma only when she wanted something, how Grandma had quietly started documenting everything about 5 years before her death, sensing that trouble was coming. "She set up a paper trail on purpose," Mrs. Patterson explained. "Every loan documented, every promise recorded. She told me once, if Robert and Patricia want to fight Kimberly after I'm gone, she'll have the weapons to defend herself. Your grandmother was a strategic woman." After that call, I understood the full scope of what Grandma had done for me. It wasn't just the house. It was the ammunition to protect it. She'd known her son would challenge the will, and she'd prepared accordingly. The thought made me cry, but they were grateful tears. The following week, something happened that shifted the entire dynamic. Tyler, Amanda's fiancé, called me directly. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. "Kimberly, please don't hang up," he said quickly. "I need to talk to you about Amanda." "I don't think that's a good idea. She doesn't know I'm calling. She'd kill me if she knew. But I can't do this anymore. I can't watch her destroy herself over this house thing." I waited, saying nothing. "She's obsessed," Tyler continued. "She talks about that lake house constantly, how it should be hers. How you stole it, how unfair everything is. She's on social media looking at real estate porn, planning how she'd decorate it, creating Pinterest boards of furniture she wants to buy when we get the house. It's delusional, and I can't make her see it." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I'm about to call off the wedding. I love Amanda, or I thought I did, but this whole situation has shown me sides of her I can't unsee. The entitlement, the manipulation, the complete lack of self-awareness. I've watched her cry to her parents about how mean you are, then turn around and laugh about how they're going to make you pay. It's ugly, Kimberly. She's ugly inside, and I don't think I can marry someone like that." I felt an unexpected pang of sympathy for him. "I'm sorry you're going through this." "Don't be. You tried to warn me in your own way. At family dinners, I could see you watching her, watching them all. I thought you were just jealous. Now I realize you were trying to survive." Tyler did call off the wedding 2 days later. Amanda predictably blamed me. According to Aunt Carol, she showed up at my parents' house hysterical, screaming that I'd ruined her life, that I'd poisoned Tyler against her. The irony of her blaming me for the consequences of her own behavior was not lost on anyone except Amanda herself. The settlement negotiations took place in Jennifer's office 2 weeks later. My parents arrived without Amanda, but with a new lawyer, a bankruptcy attorney named Sarah Chen, no relation to Harold. They looked diminished somehow, smaller than I remembered. We sat across from each other at the conference table, my parents refusing to meet my eyes. Sarah Chen laid out their situation bluntly. My clients are prepared to file for bankruptcy. They have approximately $80,000 in equity in their home, some retirement savings they might be able to access with penalties, and various personal assets. The total value of everything they own is approximately $150,000. They owe the estate $197,000, Jennifer countered, plus legal fees of $45,000, which they cannot pay without bankruptcy. In bankruptcy, those debts would be discharged, and Ms. Morrison would receive only a portion of what she's owed as an unsecured creditor. I watched my parents as the lawyers negotiated. My father looked older than his 60 years. My mother's hands were shaking. I thought about Grandma Rose, about the hours we'd spent together, about her gentle wisdom and the life she'd built through her own hard work. "What about Amanda?" I asked suddenly. Everyone looked at me. "Amanda benefited from the misappropriated education fund," I continued. "What happens to her?" Sarah Chen glanced at my parents. "Amanda is not party to these proceedings. The loan was to your parents. But she received the money. The condo down payment came from that fund." Jennifer caught on to what I was thinking. "We could pursue Amanda separately for the return of those funds." My mother finally spoke. "Please don't. Amanda and Tyler just bought that condo. If you go after her, they'll lose it." "Like you tried to make me lose Grandma's house?" I asked quietly. My father's head snapped up. "We were desperate. The business is failing. We're drowning in debt. We thought if we could just get that house, sell it, we could start over. By taking what was mine, what Grandma wanted me to have. We made a mistake," my mother whispered. "A terrible mistake. We see that now." I looked at them, really looked at them, and tried to find some feeling of filial affection, some remnant of love. There was nothing. Just emptiness where a family should have been. "Here's my offer," I said. "You sign an agreement never to contact me again. No calls, no visits, no attempts at reconciliation. You're out of my life completely and permanently. In exchange, I'll settle the estate debt for whatever you can pay without bankruptcy, and I won't pursue Amanda." My parents stared at me. My mother's face crumpled. "You're disowning us." "I'm accepting what's been true for years. You never wanted a daughter. You wanted a backup plan, someone to clean up your messes and subsidize your golden child. I'm done being that person." "Kimberly, please," my father started. "Those are my terms. Take them or leave them." Sarah Chen looked at my parents. After a long moment, my father nodded. My mother was crying, but she nodded too. We worked out the details over the next hour. My parents would liquidate what they could and pay the estate $85,000. They would sign a legally binding agreement never to contact me. In exchange, I would not pursue Amanda, would not seek further collection on the debt, and would release them from the legal fees. When the papers were signed, my parents stood to leave. My mother paused at the door. "I hope you'll regret this someday," she said, her voice thick with tears. I met her eyes. "I won't." They left. I never saw them again. The aftermath was more complicated than the resolution. Aunt Carol kept in touch, respecting my boundaries about my parents, but wanting to maintain our relationship. Uncle Tom sent a card apologizing for not seeing what was happening sooner. Aunt Linda called weekly for months, just checking in. Amanda tried to contact me exactly once, 3 months after the settlement. She sent a long email full of justifications and accusations, claiming I destroyed the family, that I was cold and heartless, that Grandma would be ashamed of me. I deleted it without responding. The money from the settlement went into a scholarship fund at the local community college in Grandma Rose's name, specifically for non-traditional students returning to education. The first recipient was a single mother in her 40s getting her nursing degree. Grandma would have loved that. I still live in the lake house. I've made it fully mine now, adding a sunroom where I can watch the water, updating the kitchen, turning the garden into something that honors Grandma's memory while reflecting my own taste. I work from here, walk on the beach every morning, and have slowly built a life that feels authentic. I've made friends in town, people who know me as Kimberly, the woman who lives in the blue house by the lake, not as anyone's daughter or sister. I've dated, though nothing serious yet. I've learned to kayak and taken up photography. I've written a blog about elder care that's gained a surprising following. I've learned to be alone without being lonely. Sometimes I think about my parents, wonder how they're doing. I heard through Aunt Carol that they had to sell their house, moved into a smaller condo. My father's business finally closed. They're living on Social Security and whatever my mother can make from part-time work. Amanda and Tyler are still together, still struggling financially, but they kept their condo. I don't feel guilty about any of it. They made their choices. I made mine. The hardest part was grieving the family I never really had, accepting that my parents were never going to suddenly see me, value me, love me the way parents should love their children. That Amanda was never going to be the sister I'd imagined during those lonely childhood years, that some relationships are toxic, and the healthiest thing you can do is walk away. But there's freedom in that grief too. Freedom from expectation, from obligation, from the constant hope that maybe this time would be different. A year after the settlement, I was working in my office when I got an email from a cousin I barely remembered, my father's brother's daughter, Melissa. She'd heard about everything from her dad and wanted to reach out. "I understand if you don't want to talk to anyone from the family," she wrote, "but I wanted you to know that what happened to you happened to me too, in a different way. Different favoritism, different manipulation, same result. I cut ties with my parents 5 years ago. Best decision I ever made. If you ever want to talk to someone who understands, I'm here." We started emailing, then talking on the phone. Melissa lived in Oregon, worked as a therapist, had built a life completely separate from the family drama. She became the sister Amanda never was, someone who understood the unique pain of being the unfavored child, the scapegoat, the one who got away. Through Melissa, I met others. Children of narcissists, survivors of family estrangement, people who'd made the difficult choice to prioritize their own well-being over blood obligation. It was like finding a tribe I never knew existed. I learned that what happened to me wasn't unique, that families like mine existed everywhere, presenting perfect facades while destroying their children's sense of self-worth. That choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's survival. I'm 33 now. It's been 18 months since I last spoke to my parents. The house is fully mine legally and emotionally. The garden is blooming with roses that Grandma would have loved. My work is fulfilling. My friendships are genuine, and I'm learning to build a life based on my own values rather than someone else's expectations. Sometimes on quiet mornings when the lake is mirror smooth and the sun is just rising, I sit on the dock with my coffee and think about Grandma Rose. I think about her strength, her clarity, her absolute certainty about who I was and who I could become. I think about the gifts she gave me, not just the house, but permission to choose myself. "Thank you," I whispered to the water, to the morning, to her memory. "Thank you for seeing me." The house stands behind me, solid and beautiful, mine in every sense of the word. Not because I fought for it, though I did. Not because I won, though I did that too. But because someone who truly loved me wanted me to have a place where I belonged. And here in Grandma Rose's house by the lake, I finally do. The legal battle is over. The family is fractured beyond repair. My parents lost their comfortable lifestyle, their daughter, and their dignity. Amanda lost her pedestal and her safety net. They have almost nothing left. But I have everything that matters: peace, freedom, home, and I wouldn't change a single thing.